Time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
Well, folks, he was a lawyer, he was a state legislator, he was the district attorney in Luzerne County, became a trial judge, then went on to become a Superior Court judge, and now he's on the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. I'm talking about everyone who knows him as a great guy, Correale Stevens. Judge Corey Stevens is my guest today, and I thought we would find out who the real Corey Stevens is.
Sammy, how are you?
I'm doing fine, Corey. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Now, first of all, I got to tell you, my wife said to me, I just told you with my daughter, she said, I think the Judge Stevens show is one of the best shows on TV. I said, now what about the Sam Lesante show, and what about the girl? She said, she loves your show, okay? And I'll tell you what, you do a great job on it. You really do.
We love taping it, and everybody associated with it here does a great job. I mean, and it's fun. People come up to me in the gym, and they'll say they saw it, and we enjoy doing it. It's a great show. It's a public service because it's educational, but it's also entertaining.
But the acting is fabulous. I mean, you actually think that they're the actual people, and you get great people. Where do you get all these people from?
Just local people, but one of the first shows was Butchie from, he used to manage the Regal Cinema.
Yeah.
And he said after the show, his aunt called him and left a message on the machine crying that she's sorry he got into trouble and that she was going to get him a lawyer. And then a couple days later, he gets another message. I didn't realize it was just a television show. So it's fun.
That is really funny.
People are great.
And Butchie, what a great guy he is. But
Butchie Idleman.
Yeah,
yes.
right. Yeah, you had Attorney Gillespie's daughter on. She did a great job. I mean,
yes.
They all did.
Everybody's been great.
Yeah. Well, anyway, let's go back a little bit, Corey. People in Greater Hazleton, now in the state of Pennsylvania, you have a fabulous reputation, do a great job in different areas. But why did you decide to become a lawyer?
Oh, that goes back to, remember a school called H.F. Grebe?
Yes.
Well, I was in 7th grade, and I had to do an essay on 10 professions. And at the top was the FBI, and then there were like the equivalent of today's DEA. And I looked, and it was all government and law. And that's what led me to it. I have to thank a teacher, I think his name was Mr. Cataldo. And he was the one that gave me that essay, and that got me researching. And there was no internet. You had to actually get an encyclopedia and look and read about it.
Right?
Yeah. But the FBI and government law, I love it.
So, you went into it. What college did you go to for your law degree?
I went to Penn State, and then I went to Dickinson Law School in Carlisle, which is now affiliated with Penn State.
All right. So, you went, and what did you start practicing? Did you practice with a firm?
I started out with a law firm, but you take all the people that come in, and my grandmother, Elsie Correale, she had 17 brothers and sisters, and I think they all waited for me to get out of law school to get deeds and wills, because I remember her calling me one day, and she said, "You send a bill to my brother." And I said, "Well," I said, "That's what I got to do." So I had to stop those bills. So I started out in the hall, but then it was fun though. It was fun.
Sorry, you started practicing, and then what happened that you decided to how did the political thing? Why did you decide to run for state rep?
I was always involved in government. I always felt it was a good way to help people, and then I had the opportunity to run for state representative, and we had a local office, and people would call when they had problems, and I just took it from there.
How'd you find that, Corey? Being a state legislator.
I think it's a great job, and when I'm in Harrisburg, I'm in awe. I look at the Capitol, and I think this is where laws are made, and that I was part of it. And really, if it weren't for the people here locally, I would have never won any office. I mean, they were very supportive.
Always, they were always totally supportive.
But when you're in the Capitol and you realize that all the laws of Pennsylvania and the history of Pennsylvania, it's really inspiring and humbling to be part of that. It's a wonderful experience.
Well, there you were as a state legislator, and you're creating laws. Okay, I mean,
right.
So when you were there as a state legislator, sometimes you would say, "Boy, if I were a judge, this is what I would do. I would change this. I would do this. Little did you know at that time. I don't think you knew. Did you have any? Did you know when you were a state legislator you were going to end up becoming a Supreme Court judge in the state of Pennsylvania?
I never even thought of being a judge.
Yeah. Okay, that's right.
It wasn't even considered. I didn't even think about it.
All right. So what led you then from this become the state legislator, then decide well, I think I'll run for district attorney. What was the reason there for the change?
Well, in going through the laws at the time, I felt people were frustrated, as they are now with the crime rate. And I thought, I'm passing these tough laws, mandatory sentences. I thought maybe I could get more involved in the system. And that's when the opportunity came to run. With government and politics, a lot of it's timing. And it was an opportunity to run. And it was difficult, but the people in the greater Hazleton area really supported me. Because it's tough in the county when you're from the southern part. I don't think it's as bad now as it was back in the early 90s, the late 80s. But, and then I had the opportunity to be a prosecutor and work with the police and the community. I believe in community outreach, whatever I've been doing, going into schools, talking to young people, senior citizen centers, letting people know how their law works. I think that's important. We get a lot of students come through, at least in Superior Court. We had a lot of high school students come, even from Center City, Philadelphia, and we thought maybe if they see the system and understand it, then they won't be part of it in a bad way,
When you becoming a state legislator and knowing you as well as I do, and then deciding to go into a political office, the district attorney, who did you who was the district attorney DA before you?
He had been appointed. His name was Bernard Podkasey.
Yeah, Bernard.
So he was running.
Yeah.
And then I just ran, and he ran.
Was that the judge?
The judge's son.
The judge's
right.
son. Okay.
Right.
All right. And then you then entered the political arena, becoming DA, because you had a purpose at that time to become DA.
Yes. Yes.
When you become a prosecutor and you were doing your job as DA, what then decided, well, you know what, I think I should become a trial judge? What happened there?
Well, actually, it was lawyers. It was lawyers that said to me, we think that you would make a good judge. And again, I hadn't thought about it. And then as we talked and thought about it, there was an opening. There were 4 openings. So I ran, and I was first on the Republican side, but I also came in 4th on the Democratic side, so I won both nominations. And then at that point, the governor was Bob Casey. He appointed Judge Hugh Mundy and me. And then I was a trial judge.
What did you learn from being a trial judge?
Well, I think in all the offices, you learn the law, you know the law, but you just try to see, you have to be understanding of different points of view. And I think that's very important, to be understanding of different points of view and to always maintain that fairness and impartiality. In a criminal case with the jury has to decide. Judges have to be careful. If they raise an eyebrow, ask questions they shouldn't ask, they could influence the jury. And on the appellate courts, we look for that to make sure that everybody's fair. Our county court right now, it's really very well respected in the state.
Oh yeah, I think we're set up. At any point in time, now be honest with me, when you sat there and you were going through a trial, did you think in your mind, I know that person's guilty, but I can't do anything about it? I mean, I just know that person is guilty, and then but you just could not do anything about it because you had to maintain the integrity of being the judge?
No, you can't think that way, because
Come on, now there had to be a time when
you also have civil cases, and you can't think, well, that plaintiff is lying on the slip and fall. That's not the judge's role. The judge has to make sure the lawyers follow the rules and that they get a fair trial. And really, you don't think about it that way, because you know that when you hear the prosecution, it's going to sound like it's all guilty. And when you hear the defense, in a lot of cases that go to trial, there's a good arguable defense. So you know that there's another side to it. The jurors want to hear from the defendant, but we have to tell them the law is that the defendant never has to take the witness stand, and they don't have to, and the jurors can't consider that. So as a judge, you're really not looking at You're not the juror. It's different. You're trying to make sure that the lawyers are following the rules. That's the main thing. Get a fair trial.
And okay, so how many cases when you were a judge?
You should be on jury duty.
Yeah.
So can I put your name
No,
in?
no, that's
I'll put your name in.
No, that's okay.
Right.
I don't need to do that. But it's because of the nature of what I'm doing here. It's very difficult. I think it's the experience. But let me ask you this: when you were without having a jury, you know, and the judge had to decide, you know, would you try to get the both sides in to try to settle before you went into into trial?
Well, you mean before trial?
Yeah.
Well, that's up in a criminal, and that's up to the lawyers if they want to try to make a deal. Judges can't be involved in plea bargaining in Pennsylvania. So the lawyers would come to me and say, we've reached an agreement. When we go into court, we hope you're going to accept it.
Okay.
And in most cases, if it's reasonable, the judge accepts it.
How about a civil case? You know,
Same thing.
Same thing.
Because
Now-
sometimes the lawyers would say, we're having trouble. We agree as lawyers, but our clients don't agree. Would you bring the clients in?
Okay.
And then let us talk in front of them. And then that gives a little more formality, but the judges don't get involved in the actual plea deal.
Do you think it's best sometimes to have things settled before you go into court?
Absolutely, the system would fall apart. I would bet 90-some% of the cases in criminal court go to guilty pleas, and a lot of the civil cases settle.
Is that right? Folks, I'm talking to Correale Stevens, Judge Correale Stevens, Supreme Court Judge Correale Stevens. He also has a show here on SSP TV called The Judge Stevens Show, which is fabulous. You got to check it out. We come back. All right, he's a trial judge. Now, why does he want to become the Superior Court judge, and what do they do? Then he becomes a Supreme Court judge, as he is right now. A lot more to discuss with Corey Stevens. We come back after this break. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. Remember, 24/7 SSPTV.com. You can watch every one of the shows we produce, including the Judge Stevens Show. My guest today is Supreme Court Judge Correale Stevens, Supreme Court in the state of Pennsylvania. Pleasure to have him on the show. We're going through memory lane here, folks. He was his lawyer, of course, became a state legislator, ran for a district attorney, and then decided to run for trial judge, and then moved from there. We're at the judge part right now. So now you're in you're judge, Luzerne County judge. What happens that you decide to run for Superior Court, and why?
Well, again, it wasn't anything that I thought about. I mean, I loved being a trial judge and dealing with the jurors, everything. But I was at an event, and Tom Ridge was governor, and he and I had gone to law school together, and he said that they were looking for trial judges who had experience to run for the appellate court. And I said, sure, you know. But I hadn't thought about it, running statewide from Luzerne County. But I thought it was only half serious. But then a few weeks later, they called me. So then I sat down with my family. I said, you know, this is a statewide election. And I called some of my friends in the area, and everybody said, give it a try. And that year we campaigned hard. I mean, I went all over the state. But people are the same. I could be playing bingo with people in Erie or in Pittston, and people are nice, and they're the same. And you talk to them, and, you know, it worked out very well.
So what would be, you know, why would I want to vote for this guy, Corey Stevens, if I lived in Pittsburgh? I mean, what was it that you brought to the table? I know you've always been a champion and still are a champion for the seniors, okay? You've always been there for the senior citizens from A to Z. Whatever they needed, whatever you could do, you were there and still are, okay? But why should I vote for you if I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania?
Well, that's the question that I had to ask myself to tell people. And then all you can do is you point to your background.
That's it.
And you point to your background, you tell them that, you know, you're going to be tough, but you're going to be fair, you're going to be impartial. And I have the background as a trial judge, and people like that. People like that. Plus, they like to see and hear from people. Now, you can't see everybody in Pennsylvania.
No.
But you could see large groups of people.
Yeah.
Hundreds at a time, maybe 1,000 at a time.
Did you learn anything from that experience going through the state of Pennsylvania?
Well, a lot of people have the same problems. You know, crime is on everybody's mind,
And so when you look at the cause, okay, you have to look at the cause, of course, of why crime is there, and 90% of it is drug-related, okay?
A lot of it is.
So now, you know, we say to our legislators, look, we know that crime is a problem. All right. So when the policeman or the state or whatever, when they do get them, don't give this slap in the hands. So you're regulated as a judge as to what your boundaries are, right? In other words, if you're going to sentence somebody, you have to have a legislative. You need to know that you can't send that person for 50 years when you only get sent them for 5.
Okay, I'll answer it short because I teach at Penn State Hazleton and we go into a whole class on this. But the long and short answer is that the legislature sets the limits, like maybe up to 10 years in jail.
Right.
And in most cases, the judge has discretion, up to 10 years, cannot go over it. But when I was in the legislature, we felt at the time that judges were being too lenient and not consistent across the state. So we passed laws like if you sell drugs within 1,000 feet of a school, the judge has to give you at least 5 years. He can't go more than whatever it is, 10, but he can't give you probation. That's called a mandatory sentence. So the trial judges still have a lot of discretion, but there are certain cases, if you use a gun in the commission of a robbery, you're going to get at least 5 years in jail. So it's complicated. The legislature saying to the trial judges, you're too lenient in this area.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the trial judges still get discretion based on the individual case.
Well, that has been always, some of the concerns of the people in the state of Pennsylvania was, when they get these guys, slam them hard so it sends a message out there not to do it again, okay?
Well, right.
Would you agree to that?
Well, it depends on the case. I mean, as a judge, I can't pre-decide a case.
No, I'm saying,
but
you just
as
said...
long as the judge gives them a sentence within the range they're allowed to, I mean, unless there's some bias, those sentences stand.
So what is this? So you ran for Superior Court and you won, okay? Here again, because of your excellent record, all right? What does a Superior Court do?
Well, they handle all criminal appeals. From all the trial judges in Pennsylvania, all criminal appeals go to Superior Court. Most civil appeals, the only things that don't, go to the other court, Commonwealth Court. They're like election matters and so on. So you get a wide range of law. You get all criminal cases, you get medical malpractice, custody, you get contracts, all civil law. So the Superior Court handles something like 8,000 appeals a year, which is a lot. It's the busiest appellate court in the country.
Wow. So all right. So you said, and that was exciting for you, wasn't it?
It's a wonderful court.
Yeah. Now, what happens? You're a Superior Court judge and say, "Come on, Corey, make up your mind. Now you want to become," how did the Supreme Court thing happen?
Well, see, again, I wasn't looking to do this. I was elected
I'm just an innocent bystander. Give me a break. You're pulling me back in.
I was elected as the president judge by the other judges, and I was supposed to do that for 5 years. But after 2.5, and there was a vacancy, the governor was looking for someone to send a name to the Senate that was agreeable to both parties. And they kept coming back to me, but I wasn't really applying or seeking it. And the governor called me to a meeting. In fact, when his staff called, they said, "Can you come down to Harrisburg today at 5:30?" And I said, "No, I have work to do." And they got real quiet and they said, "This is important." So then I knew it was about the Supreme Court, and I met with him, and he never asked me about any cases. He never asked me not to run again. He just said, he asked me, "How do I get Democratic support as a Republican?" And I said, "I don't look at it that way." I said, "I've never looked at it that way. You do what you think is right, and that's all you can do." And then the Senate confirmed me, and I love it. It's a great court. It's a lot of work. It's different work, but it's a great court.
So let's go back to the meetings. The governor needs a person that has the qualifications, has the background, has the ability, and Correale Stevens happens to be that person that the governor felt, okay?
Well, obviously I wasn't the only one with those qualifications, but
he called you.
Well, yes, because he wanted somebody that he could get confirmed by the Republicans and the Democrats. And I was not partisan, and I had support from both parties. So that factored in. I mean, there are a lot of qualified judges that could be on this.
That goes
Supreme
without
Court.
saying, but I'm saying the fact that you have such a great background, okay, and did such a fabulous job in all the different areas you were. I mean, now the governor could say, but I want you to do something in this area.
Well, no, he wouldn't, and I would have walked out.
Yeah,
But the other thing is, he talked about my background. He said the legislature, trial judge, DA. He said, so he felt that with my background that I brought some different things to the court that were unusual.
So how do you find the Supreme Court versus the Superior Court?
Well, it's just a little bit different because oral argument's the same when the lawyers come in. The work is broader, the policy. We make the policy. Like the Superior Court has to follow established precedent, but the Supreme Court can change precedent, can make laws. You got to be careful because you don't want to interfere with the legislature. They're the lawmaking body.
Now that's interesting because I watched you on PCN a while too when you were in Pittsburgh. They had and all of the Supreme Court judges were there. You were sitting at the end. I want them to move you in the middle. Okay.
Well, that's a big difference. On Superior Court, like I was in charge.
Yeah.
But
But anyway,
but you just do what you got to do.
So I listened to these people talking. I think it was about coal or something. I don't know what it was. But I was listening to the person making the presentation and all the judges up there, and then you listen and you say, well, that person's right, and then you ask some very good questions, and then she left, and the guy comes on and he's saying, wait a minute, I think that person's right. That's a difficult. I mean, how does you separate knowing who is telling what?
Well, don't forget, before court, we have the legal arguments of both sides. We've read them. So we know pretty much what the lawyers are going to say, but we still may have some questions.
Okay.
And we have a good idea which way we want to decide. But the lawyers could change our minds at oral argument by bringing up something in a different way. So it's a give and take, and you think about it a lot.
So do you ever call your buddies on the Supreme Court, say, look, this is the way I'm going. You're going this way. Do you guys collaborate?
No. They might like that. I don't know, but no, we don't do things like that.
You're going individually. You don't You don't know that it'll be a 5-4 or 4-4.
Well, no. On Superior Court, you don't call the other court.
How about Supreme?
But in Supreme Court, we go into a room afterwards, and we talk about every case.
Okay.
And then we give a preliminary vote. And that's what Superior Court does too.
Okay.
I'm leaning toward this, or I'm leaning toward that.
Okay.
And then we'll talk it out.
All right.
And then somebody's assigned to write it. And then after you write it and put the law in it, the other justices or judges will read it. And then if they agree with you, they're part of it. But it's a constantly ongoing intellectual process.
This is amazing. It's fascinating. I mean, when people, just don't know all the work that's involved with these cases.
The
right?
decision making, it's really fascinating, and I talk about this in my classes at Penn State. But we do seminars for lawyers, and we try to explain the decision making so they understand. Mm-hmm. There's a lot involved of thinking how to approach something.
Folks, I'm talking to Judge Correale Stevens. He's a Supreme Court judge and has a show out here on SSP TV called The Judge Stevens Show. Folks, if you watch the show, you actually think it's an actual, they're true stories and it's a public service. But it's a great show. We come back, we'll talk a little bit more to the good judge. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. SSPTV.com. My email, sam@ssptv.com. Remember, every show we produce is on our website. Just hit the shows, go through them. One show you want to watch is the Judge Stevens Show, and my guest is Supreme Court Judge Correale Stevens. How does the Supreme Court judge, or any judge for that matter, interpret the law?
Well, that's a great question, because that's what judges do, and they have to try to do it in a way to be consistent with what the legislature wanted. So if the legislature says, let's just make up a law, you have to have 10 books on your shelf. And then and they come in and they say, well, you only have 3 books. And you say, no, I have 3 bound volumes, but I have Moby Dick on a CD. That's a book. I have the Bible, and the Bible, how many books does the Bible have? 6, whatever that is. So you're going to say, well, I don't have 10 bound volumes, but I have 6 on the Bible. I have 3 bound volumes, and I have 1 on CD. And then a judge might have to decide, well, what's a book? Is it only a bound volume, or could a CD be a book if a book is on it? So you have to interpret the law. Like, for example, you can't sell drugs within 1,000 feet of a school. A lawyer argued for the defendant who was arrested that the school did not include school property which was a mile away, which was at a track. And it was important to his client because if the track and field was school property, his client got the 5 years plus. If it's not school property, his client doesn't get the 5 years plus. And the courts looked at it and they said, what did the legislature mean? They didn't want drug dealers around schools and children, so that doesn't just mean the main building, that means all school property. So that's how the law gets interpreted. And then if the legislature doesn't like the way the judges say it, they can redo the law.
You know, it's fascinating, Corey, because that's why I think I've always said this on my show. When people are voting for people, make sure you check their qualifications.
Absolutely.
And I hate the situation where, you know, just vote straight Democrat, straight Republican, or vote for him because he's Italian, vote for him because he's Polish. I mean, we're proud of our heritage, there's no question about it. But these politicians that are doing this, I think they're doing a terrible disservice to the community. Hence, here you are, a successful judge, bringing a lot of talent, you know, to the Supreme Court. And I'm not saying it because, you know, we know each other. The point is that you've developed such a fabulous background and such a, you know, you're so clear in your decisions and you're so honest and fair and balanced. And I think that's a trait that I think every judge should have.
Well, thank you. But what you said about straight voting, when I ran the first time, I had been a Democrat and I ran as a Republican, and I had an aunt that called me and she was all upset. She said, I can't vote for you.
Yeah.
I said, why not? She said, I don't know how to vote for a Republican. And it made me think about a lot of people didn't know they could split their ticket. So I did ads on how to split a ticket and vote for the person you want. And I watch your show, which is a great show, and you're very consistent about that. Look at qualifications.
And hold them accountable. You know, like, listen,
Absolutely.
if I'm going to vote for you for a Supreme Court judge, okay, I want to know what your background was, and was he consistent, and was he accountable? And certainly you have the 100% score, such as what the Senate did. And that's what I think is so important, Corey. We're losing, you know, I don't like this, you know, vote for them because you're a Democrat or Republican. We're in a mess because of that.
Well, and also, you know, there's an effort to take judges out of the hands of the voters and appoint them. And the problem with that is that people aren't going to know anything about judges until they're already appointed.
Yeah.
So it's up to the candidates to let the people know, and then the people, and I always supported it in the legislature, keep judges elected so people can make that decision. But anyway, that's for the legislature to decide, not me.
Well, all I can tell you is that we're very proud of you.
Thank you.
Okay, you certainly are a tremendous asset to the state of Pennsylvania. You are a great judge, and you've been always so fair and balanced and so kind, and we appreciate that. And we certainly are proud that you're on our show.
It's a public service, what you do, and thank you. And please watch the Judge Stevens show.
Hey, folks, it's on every week. You just look at the schedule. Judge Correale Stevens, a Supreme Court judge. We're very proud of him, and we're also very excited that he's on SSP TV with its own show. It's a fun show, folks. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Sam.
You're welcome.